Last time we started to look at these two dead Commodore Plus 4s. We discovered that this one had a dead CPU and a non-functioning power switch. I later took the power switch apart and then a part of it pinged across the room, never to be seen again. We discovered this one had a dead TED chip and 3 dead DRAMs. So we took the TED chip out of this one and put it in this one, and then we put 3 new DRAMs into this one, and we got one working machine. This now has no CPU, no TED, no power switch. So let's see if we can get this one working as well as this one. So now I've got a replacement power switch, a whole stack of DRAMs. This is enough for 2 complete new systems, and I've got, I think, enough capacitors to recap both machines. I've got a new TED, and this is going to be interesting. This came from, not sponsored. We have got a 6502 plus 4 board. This has got all sorts of fancy stuff on the back, and basically it lets you take a regular 6502 and it turns it into an 8510, whichever the CPU is that's in here, or in this case isn't in here. So we'll be giving this a try and see how it does. I believe this is a 65C02, so this is the CMOS version, but we will have a play with that in due course. I'd like to thank PCBWay for sponsoring this video. PCBWay make printed circuit boards in a whole variety of colours and shapes and sizes and board thicknesses and number of layers. They start from just $5 for 10 boards. They also do CNC machining, they do 3D printing, they do sheet metal work. They also have shared projects like this one where somebody has made a board and made it available for you to build, or you can upload your own Gerber files like these and PCBWay will make them. You just pick your colour. Check them out, www.pcbway.com. So let's open up this one. I'm going to take the RAM chips out that I put in last time and replace them with the new stuff, partly because we still had some MT RAM in there, and also partly so that all the chips are essentially the same. Now, at the end of the last episode, one problem that I thought I had found was that the lid didn't close. Well, in fact, actually it does. The problem was not the position of these chips. The problem was actually these big disc capacitors which stood up higher than the chips even in the sockets. And they were causing a problem. So what I did was I put some tape on there just so that it doesn't short out with this big ground plane. And then it just folds over like that. And that is going to protect these capacitors and everything will be fine. I'm also going to retro bright this because that is a horrible colour, and give it a bit of a clean. I think that might actually be a replacement label. The sticky down is not very even, but it's not. It appears to be a vinyl sticker rather than the normal sort of embossed raised up thing. Right. So let us take these chips out and put these new chips in. And then we'll recap this board, and that will be it basically finished, apart from the recapping, and then we'll go on to the other board. There's our chippies. They are KM4164s. So these are 4164s. They were sold to me as 4264s. That is very interesting. Definitely says 4164. Same as these. So I'll just lift these MT RAMs and put them in there in that case. Actually, no. I'll have them all from the same batch. That's going to be easier, isn't it? These of course have got short pins on them, so they're bound to pop out. Actually, we should run them through the DRAM tester and check that they all work. Let's do that before we put them in. Four greens, clear to land. So as each one's doing, I'm going to put the previous one in. Four greens, clear to land. 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 So this one I managed to bend a pin. There we go, four greens, clear to land. Four greens, cleared to land. And finally, four greens cleared to land. So there we are. Now let's recap this board. It probably doesn't really need it, because caps from this era were generally pretty good and they don't look like they've leaked at all, but we've got the caps and we might as well give it a go. So these capacitors are basically what I had lying around. So we've got four values. We've got 2200 microfarads at 16 volts. Well, I've got 2200 at 25 volts. I think that's going to be okay, because you can go up a voltage level, you can't go down a voltage level. Then we've got 100 microfarads at 50 volts. I've got some of those. I don't remember what brand they are, but they're good brands. They're either Nichicons or Panasonics, or something like that. These are 1 microfarad 50 volts, that's that one. And all the rest are 10 microfarads at 50 volts. So let's put them in. We'll do the odd values first, because then everything else is just regular. You've seen all this before, you might as well just sort of go away and make a cup of tea or something for 5 minutes, right? So you've seen me do caps before. We'll just come back when I've done the rest of the board. Save you sitting through it all. There we go. Capacitor 7, of course, was inside the TED shield. And of course I got covered in thermal jizz. So I've had to clean that off, and we will reapply some more goo. There we go. Still some on the top. And that's the recap done. So we should give it a quick test, make sure it still works. Obviously clean this stuff off first. and then we can get on with the other one. It's just resting in the case, it's not screwed down. So power, video, keyboard is plugged in. I'm just going to rest it on the top. Right, so let's power it on. Light comes on. Sorry about the angle. This is actually the first time we've tried the keyboard. Seems to be fine. The action is good. Cursors are working fine. We're going to take the key tops off in any case and retro bright this. Right. That's off, that's off. So I'll screw this back together and then we'll look at the other one. And just so that we know what we've done, we've put a little sticker in there saying it's got new TED, new RAM, and been recapped 9/2024, September this month. So if you find it on eBay and you see that, you'll know where it came from. Before we put the keyboard back on, let's take the keypad out of its case so that we can get these keys out. It'll just make it easier, and then we can retro bright this while we are looking at the other machine. So we'll clean this off as well because it looks like there's a fair bit of gunge. Okay, that's interesting. That is actually broken. Okay, I'm going to clean this. You don't need to see that because this is not Tim clean stuff. And we'll take that downstairs and we will get retro brighting. And so to the second machine. I've already taken the screws out, so we can just lift the lid off, put that out of the way. I'm going to put my anti-static on. I've got the power switch. It came all the way from Italy. We need to unscrew the inside. It's probably going to be a good idea to recap this board as well. There are 2 feet missing, so it wobbles. Going to want to put new feet onto it. There we go. So that in theory goes in there, and of course it doesn't actually fit. It's the wrong case style. So these holes don't line up with anything at all. Which is pretty impressive. This one is a much lower profile. So that's actually going to be recessed inside the case. This is a bit disappointing because it was sold as a replacement for the Plus 4. Clearly the guy either hasn't tried it. What we're going to have to do is bend these pins out. like that. We probably won't be able to solder them because they will be hidden. But I think that should actually physically work. I don't think we're going to be able to solder those tabs. Let's do this. Use that as a support. What I'll do is I'll just solder one pin and then push it home. Or at least make sure it is flush and square. Seems to be okay. There's no mechanical adhesion. I don't know if I can actually solder in there. Maybe. It's worth a try. Get a bit of solder on that. I'm not sure that that has actually connected it, but no, that's okay. Empty RAM again. Right, let's put the TED in. Pin 1, that's good. Now this, we need to make sure pin 1, that's pin 1, that's pin 1. So it goes this way. Is purely a CPU replacement at the moment. But one of the things it's got on the underneath is 512k of RAM, which it can be configured as 256k banks or 64k banks, but 256k of it. So it gives you 256k of total RAM. And to do that, you need to take out all the memory and join this to one of the CAS lines, which we can do. I'm going to rotate that because that's going to interfere with the lid. For the time being, let's set up Diag 264 and see if the machine actually boots. So here we go. Switch on the mains. That's a good start. Okay, now I'm not sure what that high mem thing was. I'll have a look on the website. But it might be something to do with this. Possibly that has basically configured it so that it thinks something is maybe there when it's not. I don't know. This is empty RAM. I am very tempted to take it out and put sockets in. See, 4F49-80 device. Maybe that is what this means. But that is very encouraging. I'm not worried about keyboard bad and stuff because they're just not plugged in. Right. So the next thing I'm going to do is recap this and take out the empty RAM and put sockets in there. Woohoo! And then we can connect this up to CAS and see if that actually gives us the extra memory. I think there is a way of testing this. I've seen it, a test program, but I don't know what that test program is. I'm going to try and find it. That's the reset. And that's the off switch. Yay, hey. I've recapped the board and I've taken the RAM out and cleaned that area up. And we now have a whole bunch of detritus. So before we go any further, I'm going to clean the bench. Yeah, I'm going to keep these RAM chips because they might be useful for testing or something. I will put them through the RAM chip tester off camera. You don't need to see all that again. And I find an old PCB. This is my IEEE 488 project that I still haven't finished. But it's an old version of it, so it's basically a gash board. Good size for a drinks mat. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put sockets in here because even though we're not going to populate the memory, we might want to in the future because this is going to be removable. It's not a one-way mod. That I think is 512k of static RAM under there. I believe only 256k is usable in this configuration because I understand some piece of software decided that nobody was ever going to have more than 256k, and so they wrote it in such a way that it breaks if you have more. I think you can reprogram the GAL on here and it will actually give you the extra memory, but I'm not positive about that. So I'm going to move this pin around because otherwise it's going to be impacting the lid of that. I don't want that, so I can move it that way. I think will be alright. I'm not going to do that first. I'll put the RAM sockets in first. I'm also going to lay these flat and put some electrical tape over that as we did in the other machine. Now what I'm going to do here is I've got some electrical tape. And I'll cut off a length. Stick that down there. Cut that off because we don't want fingerprints on it. There we go. Now they can bend down and they won't short out. The sound recorder cut out on the last segment. Hopefully there is enough audio. Right, so the sockets are in. Let's now replace this. and I want to turn that around. So let's just put the soldering iron on it. There we go, that'll do. And I've got this kind of kludge wire, which is just some breadboard stuff, and I'm going to plug that onto here. This has to go into the CAS of one of these chips, which is pin 15. So that's basically this one. Like that. So in theory this should work. Let's plug it in and try it out and run the diagnostic and see what it does, because the cartridge should detect the extra RAM, I believe. Good view of the screen. 3, 2, 1. Now all the RAM on this is coming from this chip. There's nothing actually on the board. It blanks the screen while it's doing the RAM tests because it's running at double CPU speed. There's a TED feature, I believe. Oops. Well, this is working at least. I was sort of under the impression that it should find banked RAM, but it doesn't appear to be doing so. That means we'll have to find some other kind of test to see if that actually works. So I'm going to go and look for some software, and then I'll come back and hopefully we'll be able to test it. Okay, so this is going to be a problem. This is much too high and the lid definitely won't shut. So what we're going to have to do is take this out. There we go, and remove this layer of pins to take it down, and that means it's going to impact the side of this, and I think we're going to have to bend that back. So let's extract there we go. Fortunately that's quite easy. So that's not going to go on there because this clip is in the way. So what I'm going to do is bend these tabs right back. Hopefully that's going to be enough. No, we've now got the problem of these. We're going to have to take that out and replace it with a lower capacitor. These are standard 100 nanofarad jobbies. I'll find one of them from me stock. We'll have to unscrew all this again. Right, here's me stash of 0.1 microfarad or 100 nanofarad capacitors, little tiny ones. So I'm going to replace both of these, I think, because they're both underneath. So 2 of these. So that hopefully should now fit. There we go, and nothing is impacted Excellent. Let's plug this in. It's to bend over. So this is not a permanent solution. There we go. That's in the CAS line. But we should hopefully be able to test it. I'm not going to screw it in just yet. Soldering iron away. I've got my C64 SD to IEC. That's got some +4 software on it that hopefully will at least tell us if this is working. I'm not sure if it will use it, but of course this has got one of the C64 style cassette leads. So I've made up a little adapter that basically just, we should cut that off. There we go. So that basically just takes the 5 volt off there on that little PCB and plugs into the user port. If you're using a C16, you are out of luck because it doesn't have a user port. And even on the +4, it's not such as useful a user port as we have on a C64 or a PET or a VIC. It's kind of got RS-232, but that's about it. Yeah, and I think it has got some GPIO, but you can't individually control the input and output of direction of each pin. So I believe it's either all in or all out. Not desperately useful. I may put a GPIO cartridge, or I may build a GPIO cartridge for the cartridge port, because I think that might be more useful. Who would use it? I don't know. But if you ain't got one, you can't use it. And it will, of course, I don't know what I was going to say then. Nothing coherent, probably. Anyway, that's the serial port. That's the power port. That's the keyboard. And this time it fits. It fits. Let us give it a try. I think this keyboard needs cleaning. It is really rather dirty. Okay, are we ready to rumble? Right, so on here I have put a folder. +4. We need to load, so deload FB16. Even this one has that glitch. I really don't know what causes that glitch, but every +4 and every C16 has that glitch, at least on this screen. Nothing else does. Right. This loads the magic loader. We need to go all the way down to the bottom. So these were the demos that I managed to find that, or demos and games that I managed to find that said they were 256 K. I was going to say 256 megs. But it also said they don't work on an SD to IEC. So we shall see. For some reason I've managed to lose my Pi 1541. I put it somewhere safe after the last video I used it in, and yeah, no, that's gone. Okay, it is in this room somewhere, but where, I don't know. So we're going to try, and hopefully it will at least recognize. All right, that's a good start. Right, so let's go out F3. Don't change directory, future world. Right. So if we deload star, hopefully, 256K available. Excellent. And that's all she did. I sat here waiting for about 10 minutes and nothing else happened. The lights have gone out on the SD to IEC. It just does not want to know. Even if I press reset, it doesn't do anything. So we have to turn it off. I'm doing that at the wall rather than the heavily recessed switch. Deload FB16. The nice thing about this is you don't need the closing quotes. They started to do some things right on these machines. Some people have claimed that these are not as good as a C64. I totally disagree. They don't have the games, but you know, there is more to life and more to computing than playing games. I'm sorry, but there is. I didn't catch what it said there.
Made for you.
I'm sorry, just looking at this loading screen, tell me this is not as good as a C64?
Wake up.
Doesn't seem to regard a return. Maybe it needs a joystick. It doesn't say it needs a joystick, but you would think if it uses cursor keys to go up and down, it would at least take an enter key. But no, never mind. I think that is using 256K to basically load everything off the disk and run it from the memory. He says guessing. I am going to have to clean this keyboard. I'm probably going to have to take the membrane off and clean that, because I think some of the keys are sort of not registering. I don't think it needs retrobrighting. I think it just needs cleaning. And the case needs cleaning as well. I will do that off camera. Now we're back with the keys that we retrobrighted downstairs. You can see they've come out rather well. There is still a sign of yellowing. You can see that there's a little bit around the edges. But overall, that is a lot better. They spent 2 days, 48 hours in the bath, and compared to what they were, that is a lot better. And you can see, even compared to the other keyboard, they are very, very nice and clean. So I'm going to use the other keyboard as a reference just to know where everything goes. Let us put everything back. Now these arrow keys, I've lost one of these. So I don't know where it went. I'm sure I had it. So just need to repair that. I'm going to try some super glue and see if that works. If not, it's going to need a new keycap. But compared to what it was, and even compared to the other keyboard, that is a darn sight better. I've pulled the keycaps off this second keyboard, and it's a bit grubby, but it's not as bad as the first one was, I don't think. I'm going to take these downstairs and put them into some warm dishwater, give them a good soak, and then clean. What I want to do with this, as well as cleaning it, is take the back off so that we can look at the contacts and possibly give them a bit of a clean. There are about 1 million screws here. So what we need to do is clean these contacts, and just very, very carefully clean those contacts. And cotton buds. There shouldn't be a lot of dirt on here, but this will make sure that they are nice and squeaky clean. Now these I'm going to do dry, because all we need to do is basically very, very slightly scrape the surface. Okay, that should be enough. We've got the keyboard back now. That is cleaned and the keys have been washed and the base plate has been cleaned. So we can put it back into the case. There we go. And so that will go onto the +4 itself. This has 2 missing feet. I need to find some feet for that. I'll possibly find a more secure place for that. Just need to figure out where that goes, probably on one of those 2 chips. But we are effectively done. And we'll give it one last test. Okay, here we go. 3, 2, 1, if I can find the switch. Excellent. And so there we have it. We have 2 Commodore +4s restored to working condition. This one still needs to have 2 new keycaps, but I will find keycaps for that, preferably not at 10 quid a go on eBay. And thank you for watching. My patrons are scrolling up the screen. Please like if you want to and subscribe to the channel, it all helps. And if you'd like to support the channel, then please check out my Patreon. There is now a new top tier and you get exclusive voting rights and your name at the beginning of the show. Check it out. See you next time. See ya. Bye.